Another thing that we talked about last week, the Spurs potentially trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's been all over Twitter this week. Shout out to one of my close friends. He is also an SSPN watcher, and he gave me that idea last Saturday. So that was all him, as much as, we kind of brought it on SSPN. And he saw the future, man. He had the crystal ball, because by Friday, Twitter was, are the Spurs trading for Giannis? Is Giannis going to New York? He's walking around in New York with his wife. The Spurs are probably have the most assets. David Aldridge putting out a 3-team trade with Zion going to the Bucks, Giannis going to the Spurs, and then us sending like Jeremy Sohan, Keldon, and Devin, and a bunch of picks. So it wasn't just us. I mean, David Aldridge from TNT, speaking of pop interviews, everybody was talking about this by the end of the week. And obviously that had to do with, the Bucks getting eliminated in the fashion that they did. Here's my thing, Ethan. I've looked at some of the comments. I've kind of ruminated on this since last week. Stephon Castle is untouchable. Not even a question. I understand that if I'm a Bucks fan, I'll be honest, I'll put myself in the shoes of a Bucks fan. The conversation starts with Stephon Castle for me. Or there's no conversation. But we did see a 3-team trade at the trade deadline, or close to the trade deadline, with the Spurs and the Sacramento Kings. And like I said with the David Aldridge trade, he even threw in, Zion to try to get them, a true star back, because we're not giving them Stephon Castle. And as much as, we're actually people who believe in the potential of Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, and Keldon Johnson, we understand they're nowhere near, a Giannis Antetokounmpo or Zion Williamson. With all that being said, though, man, my main takeaway, since I've ruminated on this, is I think if this is going to happen, which as time has passed, I feel like less and less that it is personally, I think that it's going to have to be a 3-team trade. What are your thoughts on just the potential of this trade and how it would go down a week later?
I would agree with that sentiment. It has to be a 3-team trade. If we can get that one that David Aldridge proposed, I would do it in a heartbeat. However, I'm with you. I'm not giving up Stephon Castle for anything. But to be honest, we said that about De'Aaron Fox too. And for the most part, if you remember back then, we every Sacramento fan, every TNT, ESPN guy was saying like, oh, Stephon Castle will be in this trade if they want De'Aaron Fox. And somehow we were able to get him without including De'Aaron Fox. So the Spurs are aware of how valuable Stephon Castle is. They're not just going to toss him for anybody, including Hall of Famers like Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I'm with you, dude. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the money's too much. I think it might be just a little bit too soon for the Spurs to pull the trigger on that, especially with a new head coach at the helm. I think we probably wait another year to pull off a trade like that. And to be honest, I think maybe a Kevin Durant trade might be slightly more likely, because we would have to give up less. And long term, we wouldn't necessarily have to worry about paying KD another max, because he's old at this point. With Giannis, you're going to have to give him another max contract in like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you got to pay Wemby too, and then it becomes an issue.
I completely agree on the Kevin Durant side of things. That's not me saying we should 100% go pursue Kevin Durant, but when we're talking about this over the past week, that's what I've kind of thought about. KD is like where we can eat his salary while we're still on this Wemby rookie contract, but his contract isn't long enough to, put us in a stranglehold long term. And I know you could say, oh, well, Giannis's technically isn't either. But like you said, if we want to keep him around, which I assume we would want to do if we're going to go get that or make that move, we'd have to pay him the extension. So bringing in KD, like I said, kind of allows us to, take advantage of this Victor rookie contract and then also keep that long-term flexibility. But to be honest with you, when I think about that, this is just all making me think like, you know what, screw all this. Let's just draft 2 guys and roll into next year with who we have. Because here's the thing. I know everybody else, it's like, oh, we need more people. These guys suck, blah, 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 blah. We traded for De'Aaron Fox last year. We made the trade for
Yeah.
an all-star already, and we just got the rookie of the year for the second year in a row. And we just did a press conference with Tim Duncan and David Robinson and both of their rookies of the year next to Stephon Castle and Victor Wembanyama. To me, that's the obvious passing of the torch. And those are the two building blocks. That's why we gave him a nickname, Area 51. Then on top of that, you've got the all-star that came in at the trade deadline earlier this year. As much as I would love to get Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kevin Durant and make a championship run, that can still happen even if we don't make that move. And I'm not saying necessarily next season, but as everybody, again, like we talked about last episode, in 2 years, Jeremy Sohan, I think he's a much improved player. I really do. And maybe I'm crazy for that and I end up being wrong there, but I think those guys can continue to develop. If Devin Vassell can get more consistent as a shooter over the next 2 seasons, you know what I mean? I don't think it's that crazy to say that the Spurs could be a championship contender in 2 years. And I think that we probably would supplement some things, with role players along the way. And who knows what happens with the lottery? God forbid we jump up into the top 4. That's another all-star we're bringing in. Or maybe we just draft well at 8, considering we drafted DeJounte Murray and Derek White at 29. I know that's very optimistic, and that's a lot of Spurs-colored glasses, but also all of those things are true.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like playing it slow here. And with everything that you just said about the improvement with the ability of the team as it is currently constructed to be a championship contender in a couple of years, we can still make a trade in a couple of years. Like, we're not limited to just Giannis or KD. In a couple of years, somebody else with a big name and a few all-star appearances under their belt will also be disgruntled or have a first-round early exit in the playoffs. And, the Spurs will still have a lot of draft capital. We'll still have Devin and Keldon. We'll still have Jeremy. We can trade at that point if we absolutely need to.
Last thing I'll say, look at 2 of our biggest rivals. Look at the Thunder and look at the Rockets. How have they built it up?
Drafting well and timely veteran signings.
Shout out Harrison Barnes.
OKC had one trade.
Go ahead.
OKC did trade for
Hartenstein?
Caruso.
Oh, Caruso.
Yeah. They signed Hartenstein, which is one of the best free agency signings of all time.
Yeah, low key. I know that people might hear that and feel like that's hyperbole, but they're 68-14. We'll see how they do tonight in about 15 minutes against the Nuggets, man. Oh my gosh. I got to check the Celtics Knicks score. Have you seen that?
I was watching it earlier. It was
sorry
close.
To steal you from it.
No, you're totally fine. It was not a high priority.
I love how people watching this is going to be after we're live recording. Yeah, we got to check the score, man. This is what happens.
89-86 Boston right now. 6 minutes left.
Interesting.
So everyone knows exactly what time of day it is.
There you go. But yeah, man, with the Spurs and Giannis or KD, one of these big trades. If it's KD, I think we got some more flexibility trade-wise as on top of long-term flexibility. But also with Giannis, again, bottom line for me, the more time passes, I just don't really see it. The only way I think it happens is if we do something like we did in the Kings trade or like the David Aldridge trade. Like, it's got to be a 3-team trade where the Bucks get another star and we don't give up Stephon. That's the only way I see that Bucks trade happening. But again, I just feel like the Bucks are really going to want Stephon Castle involved in that. And maybe they could get another star that would satisfy them along with like a Devin Vassell and a Keldon or a Jeremy or whatever we throw in there. But again, man, this just goes back to me talking about Jeremy Sohan. Like, I don't want to trade him either, man.
I think we could keep Jeremy in a Kevin Durant trade, but now we're getting too deep into the woods here.
For sure. But that's kind of Ethan and I's thoughts on all of the blockbuster stuff. I mean, we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Again, the one thing I would say I still agree with in comparison to the last episode is that with the Spurs being as attractive of a destination as they are now, that definitely is like way more realistic than I think like Tim Duncan era.
I would agree.